Back in 2003, this channel put out a bombshell leak that confirmed both the IPC of Zen 5, which turned out to be correct, contrary to what the usual AMD hype websites were claiming, and that video also leaked that Zen 6 would be receiving higher core count CCDs and another decent bump in IPC as well. However, since then, the only real updates I provided are that the core count for consumer CCDs has been upgraded from 8 to 12 cores specifically for consumer products, so 24 Zen 6 cores in total for desktop on AM5. And then I've also put out basic die specs and pretty pictures of the Medusa Point and Olympic Ridge APUs. And hey, everybody loves hearing about core count increases while they look at pretty pictures, right? But I have to say, admittedly, I still haven't put out firm specs outlining the lineup for the Zen 6 consumer family, and well, that changes today. That's right, today I will be leaking the specs of Olympic Ridge, Gator Range, Big Medusa Point, Little Medusa Point, Medusa Halo, and even a cute little APU named Bumblebee. And rest assured that this did take a lot of work. This required me and Moore's Law's Dead staff like Carbon Cry and Kerry no Sugata. Remember, Moore's Law's Dead is a team of multiple people, not just me. We had to pour over stacks of documents, and then I had to cross-reference the info we gained from them with multiple sources to make sure we weren't misreading anything and try to root out inconsistencies, because there really were some. And I say all that because I can't show you all the documents. There's just no way. That would get a lot of my sources in trouble. But I do have the approval of my sources to show a couple of snippets while I go through the leak in order to back up some of the more salacious details. And actually, there is one slide, just one, that I insist on showing in full, and I got the okay to do it from my sources, and it is this one right here, and I wanted to show you it because it possibly debunks one of the recent rumors out there about Medusa APUs. Now, at first, you might not notice anything that crazy here. We have LPDDR5X support for the Zen 6 Medusa APU, 20 PCIe Gen 4 lanes, with it expressly stating that there is plans to support dedicated graphics cards and laptops, and yeah, it'll have an AI engine amongst other things. But then, if you look closely, yep, this diagram shows that clearly at least this variant of Medusa Point, so Medusa Point, just to be clear to everyone, I keep saying that word, is a standard APU like Strix or Hawk Point or Phoenix. This plans to support low-power Zen 5 cores in addition to Zen 6C and Zen 6 cores, and that also, it clearly calls out Navi 4, which is RDNA 4. Now, I recently put out a leak that stated that there was a budget APU coming, Soundwave, that would still be using some form of RDNA 3.5. However, the documentation I saw regarding that mentioned that RDNA 3.5 in Soundwave, which comes out next year, would have an enhanced machine learning version of RDNA 3.5. And based on seeing that even a budget APU would be getting an enhanced version of RDNA 3.5 next year, I thought to myself, and I speculated in that video, that it really wouldn't surprise me if APUs coming out after that had a better version of RDNA 3.5 yet again, or even possibly RDNA 4, since they are coming out later. And that does seem to be confirmed today with the slide that I just showed you. Now, I do want to be clear about something, though. Some of my sources think that this still isn't 100% defined, meaning that there may be plans bouncing around of AMD switching to RDNA 4, or just always that was the plan, I don't know, for Medusa APUs, but some people still insist that they may stick with RDNA 3.5 or some variant of that. So take this not as confirmation that for sure AMD will be going to RDNA 4 for Medusa Point, but that they are considering it, and certainly after Medusa Point, they will be going beyond RDNA 3.5. And, well, I guess the final thing to mention here before we get into the full leak is just 4 work groups. It clearly says that it will have 4 work groups or 8 compute units, which is half of what Strix Point currently has. And I have to say that, to be honest, playing devil's advocate here, I actually think that if this were to get Infinity Cache, that 8 RDNA 4 compute units, because of how much faster they are than RDNA 3 or even 3.5 compute units, if they had Infinity Cache, might actually beat 16 RDNA 3.5 compute units that don't have Infinity Cache in gaming. And on top of that, I also have a suspicion that this diagram I just showed you is not for the top Medusa Point APU. I'm not sure about that. But I think it might be a mid-range variant of Medusa Point, and there may be a stronger one with 16 compute units above that. But really, I'm getting ahead of myself. This is all getting way too confusing. I need to show you all of the details for this to make sense, and I'm going to do that after a word from a sponsor. This piece of content is brought to you by CyberGhost VPN. With over 38 million users worldwide, CyberGhost is one of the most trusted VPN providers on the market. It boasts actually a near perfect rating on Trustpilot, with over 20,000 users rating it as excellent, and for good reason. Actually, first, why do you need a VPN? Well, think of incognito mode and how that could protect your privacy. Think again. Your internet provider, workplace, school, your home Wi-Fi, and even the websites you visit can still, even with incognito mode enabled, track everything you do online. And that's where CyberGhost VPN comes in. It encrypts your internet traffic and reroutes it through secure servers in 100 plus countries, ensuring complete privacy and security. No one, not hackers, not your ISP, not even CyberGhost itself actually, can see what you are doing online. And that also allows you to unlock the full potential of streaming. With CyberGhost, you can access 40 plus streaming platforms, including Netflix, Amazon, Prime, and Disney Plus, and enjoy content from different regions in just a few clicks. One subscription, total protection. CyberGhost works on all devices and operating system, lets you protect up to 7 devices at once, which makes it perfect for sharing, which they don't mind if you do, with friends and family. So I have an exclusive deal for you as well. Use the link in the description to grab an 83% discount plus 4 months for free, plus with a 45-day money-back guarantee and 24/7 customer support. This trial is truly risk-free. So don't wait. Support Moore's Law is dead. Just clicking the link does that. And download CyberGhost VPN today and start protecting your digital life immediately. All right, here we are. AMD Zen 6 Consumer Family Leak, March 2025. Let's get into it. Now, let me recap some of the stuff here, but also add some new details that are quite exciting. Zen 6 is targeting a 10% or more IPC uplift as leaked a couple years ago. It will have 12-core chiplets, and that will include 48 megabytes of L3. I don't believe I've confirmed that yet in any leak, but I know there's leaks out there that have said that. Yes, 48 megabytes of L3 per chiplet, and they can, now listen here, not necessarily will, they can stack Vcache layers too high. What that means is that if you had 48 megabytes of L3 in the CCD, and then you put another like 96 megabytes on top of that with Vcache, that Zen 6 has the ability to put another 96 megabytes on top of that for a massive amount of cache. Now, I have been warned that this might just happen with some epic Venice variants, for enterprise and prosumers, maybe with a Threadripper variant or something. But at a minimum, you should all know AMD can do this starting with Zen 6. And so I would say by Zen 7, we might be getting X3D gaming chips that have multiple hundreds of megabytes of cache, and that's crazy. Also, like I leaked before as well, there are 32-core Zen 6C chiplets, but I'm told to this day that that's just for server products. I wouldn't assume there will be consumer 32 cores. Everyone still tells me 24 cores. Again, despite some websites for some reason quoting random conversations in forums, it's 24 cores. Anyways, a warning too. The code names listed below are based on documentation of products in development. Me being Tom, have specifically been warned by sources that some of these variants could be canceled. Now, this is something that I've covered before as well, that Zen 5 Strix initially started having 3nm chiplet variants, and those were axed. And so I'm not saying the stuff I'm going to show you here today that any of it will be canceled, but it would not surprise me if at least one of the variants I'm about to show you is canceled, because some of it seems a bit redundant to me, and this happens where AMD designs multiple types of products and then axes one of the designs. Anyways, let's get into it. All right, so first let's start with Olympic Ridge and Gator Range. These are the desktop 24 cores that will go on either AM5 or in high-end laptops. Now, these are supposed to launch in the second half of 2026. No big surprise there. That comes 2 years after when Zen 5 launched. And I am told that it uses, and I have a snippet I'm putting on screen here to prove it from documentation, and boy did I ask around to make sure of this. Apparently, it has been redefined to utilize TSMC N2X for the node. Now, for those who don't know, the X is the ultra-high clock speed variant of the node. So not only is AMD upgrading from 4nm with Zen 5, they're not even going to 3nm, they're not even going to 2nm, they're going bleeding edge N2X. And then I am told there are 2 versions of chiplets for the I/O die, an N3P I/O die chiplet and an N6 I/O die as well. I'll get to that later. Now, the N3P variant, both of these will use the same N2X core chiplets, but that means you'll get, if they get the N3P I/O die, 2 times 12 core Zen 6 and then 2 Zen 5 low power cores in the I/O die, which would equal in total 24 big cores into really small low power cores, and it's distinctly listed on documentation as targeting above 6 gigahertz clock speeds. Also note that the 6 nanometer I/O die likely has no LP cores. And so I just want to take a second here to really examine what all of this means. AMD is not screwing around, and I asked from sources on this, like, oh, why was this changed to this? And they said management had a mandate to go above 6 gigahertz, which is almost the opposite of what AMD did with Zen 5, I would argue, whereby AMD basically said, oh, let's try 3 nanometer, that's not working out, well, let's just get Zen 5 out. Not the case. AMD seems willing to let Zen 6 slip to the end of next year as long as it means they can maximize performance and add it all up. 12 core unified CCDs, multiple layers of V-cache potentially, and above 6 gigahertz clock speeds. This is going to be a gaming monster. All right, let's continue. So, now, just to be clear again, there are references to both a TSMC N3P I/O die with a decent iGPU. I've recently leaked it could go up to 8 RDNA 4 compute units, and also a TSMC N6 I/O die with weaker or possibly no graphics and less features, and I believe it's plausible that AMD might use both. They might have a higher functioning, maybe with a neural engine and integrated graphics I/O die for the most of the lineup to be fully featured. And then for budget products, they might say, you don't need a neural engine, you don't need integrated graphics, and that way they can continue to mass produce their sub $400 products despite using a really expensive node for the core chiplets. But the core chiplets aren't a huge die size, so I could see them keeping pricing in check at least for the lower half of this lineup. Additionally, 128-bit DDR5 memory controller. Again, it's going on AM5, so that's not a surprise to anybody. Let's move on now to Medusa Point Big, or MDS1. Now, this will use FP10, as exclusively leaked by this channel, and this will use TSMC N2P CCD chiplet, plus an N3P I/O die chiplet, and or TSMC N3P monolithic, and launch possibly actually mid next year, around where Strix did in 2024, or maybe near the end of the year. Now, I know that seems confusing here. Let me address one thing. N2P, this APU can utilize the N2X chiplets that can go well above 6 gigahertz, but they plan for at least most, if not all, of the family to use an N2P chiplet. Again, these will be cross-compatible, so they can mix and match the efficient N2P chiplets and their yields on desktop and laptop, and the crazy N2X chiplets as well, but laptop is built around the N2P node in mind. Now, the chiplet variant. So there's 2 models here. I'm sorry this is getting confusing, but we have to go through this. The chiplet variant has 12-core Zen 6 plus 2 Zen 5 low power equals 12 plus 2, 14 total cores. And I will say that it might get Zen 6. That's why you see the color of Zen 5 and Zen 5 LP to not be the highest confidence. But I'm pretty much told firmly from a couple sources here that these models here, the Medusa Point ones, will get Zen 5 low power instead of Zen 6 low power for time to market so that they can launch on time. Now, additionally, there's a monolithic variant. That is the diagram that you saw earlier in this video. That looks more like Strix Point. 4 cores of Zen 6 plus 8 cores of Zen 6C plus 2 cores of Zen 5 low power. And this would then be on 3 nanometer here and be cheaper. Now, personally, I think they might make both. I think one of them, which, by the way, I was able to cross-reference with a source, is the picture I leaked. That picture of a chiplet Medusa Point. That one there. That one is MDS1, the chiplet variant, and then the diagram I showed you is a different monolithic variant on 3 nanometer. Personally, I think both of these might be used. One for, again, higher performance, and then one that is a lot cheaper on a cheaper node with weaker cores. Now, moving on here, and I'm sorry again for the confusion, bear with me. 8 to 16 compute units. Now, in that previous Zen 6 picture leak, me and the staff of Moore's Law is Dead counted 16 compute units on a diagram. But I have to say that seeing 8 compute units on one diagram, even if it's for the monolithic variant, it might mean that we miscounted. I mean, I'm not a chip engineer. I just counted what I thought I could see on a die shot that wasn't annotated. To me, it looked like 16 compute units. But I have to warn you that it could be RDNA 4 or RDNA 3.5 or 3.5 plus. We've seen these references on multiple documents, and it could be 8 or 16 compute units. I think it will be one or the other. The only thing I will say is no matter what AMD chooses, I do not expect the integrated graphics to, at least in gaming, perform worse than the previous generation. Just know that AMD is throwing around a lot of ideas right now. All right, moving forward, 128-bit LPDDR5X memory controller. That's confirmed on the diagram I already showed you. And then just to put a bow on a point I've kind of been jumping around, there are references also on a document I've seen to both an N2 powder horn CCD with MDS1, which is this model here, for AI9 products, and a monolithic N3P die in plans for this product family for AI7 and AI5 class products. Again, that is what leads me to believe that AMD might make both, and that, assuming I didn't misread a diagram, and I could have, there could be a stronger full 12-core 16 CU model, and then for mid-range, instead of having to cut these down because the nodes are so advanced, they really probably don't need to be cut down at all, there will be an 8 CU and then 4+8 model as well. Again, I'm not sure. Maybe they'll go with one, maybe they'll go with another. Maybe they both have 8 compute units of RDNA 4, but I think it's plausible that one of them is better than the other, and they're just both called MDS1 on multiple documents, by the way, for some reason. I don't know why. But anyways, Medusa Point Little. Yep, this is called MDS2 distinctly, and this one is TSMC N3P monolithic. This got very confusing for us. We almost mixed them up, but it is its own thing, with 2 or 4 core Zen 6, 4 core Zen 6C, and 2 core Zen 6 low power. This comes out a little later than the other one, so they believe they will have low power Zen 6 cores ready for this, but they haven't decided quite yet, apparently, on going with 2 big cores or 4 big cores. So it will come with 8 or 10 cores. And 4 compute units of RDNA 4 or RDNA 3.5 or 3.5 plus. Again, this is referenced on multiple documents. It seems like there are multiple options and they haven't quite decided which version of RDNA they want to go with yet. Again, 128-bit LPDDR5X memory controller. And now MDS2, by the way, specifically says on one document, listed as targeting AI5 and AI3 class products. So again, let's go into what I'm saying here. I think there's chiplet big Medusa point, and then there's monolithic big Medusa point, and then there's little Medusa point. Below that, there's a family of products. And then, of course, there is Bumblebee, baby. And Bumblebee, not monolithic, TSMC N3C, that is the cheaper variant of TSMC 3 nanometer that will come out later. So this is coming out in 2027. 2 Zen 6 cores, 2 Zen 6C cores, 2 Zen 6 low power cores for a total of 6 cores, and 2 to 4 compute units of RDNA 4 or 3.5. I wasn't able to confirm that from what I saw, how many it will get. Again, probably 128-bit LPDDR5 memory controller, but this one is farther out, so there was less documentation on it. It wasn't like widespread confirmed on a bunch of things. And then, yes, for the budget laptop market. Now, finally, Medusa Halo, MDSH as it is called in documentation. This will use TSMC N2P core chiplets plus N3P IO dies. Chiplets, as this channel, again, exclusively leaked. But unfortunately, yes, some bad news. I guess this seems to be coming out actually in the second half of 2027 in all likelihood. So again, following this cadence that seems to be established as the norm by now, that I guess you'll have the normal APUs and the Halo APUs come a year later. It's unfortunate. I was really hoping to see this compete with Blackwell, but now I think it will compete with the RTX 6000 series laptops. Anyways, though, again, 2 12-core chiplets, 2 Zen 6 at low power cores, so 26 cores total, 48 cores of RDNA. Now, this was interesting here. At first, I thought this, and people I talked to thought this would be RDNA 3.5 plus, potentially, but seeing RDNA 4 mentioned as even a possibility on 2026 products, if this is coming out 2027, I have a very, very, very hard time believing this won't get redefined to RDNA 4 or honestly even RDNA 5. In fact, I have a source that told me this week that RDNA 5 is targeting a very late 2025 or 2026 tape out for final testing and validation for the desktop variants. And yes, this person is calling it RDNA 5, by the way, not UDNA. And that aligns with this being ready. Like, you could see RDNA 5 possibly launch at the end of 2026. And then with that, a year later, it comes with RDNA 5 APUs with Medusa Halo. Again, I'm not sure. Just take that from what I've seen, it will have 48 compute units. But considering it's 2027, I got to think it's probably RDNA 5. And this will get a 384-bit LPDDR5 or 256-bit LPDDR5X memory controller. And let me explain here. So this would still be 4 memory channels, right? If you look at how LPDDR6 works, there are 50% more bits per channel. So what that means is that if an OEM wants to use the cheaper LPDDR5X memory, probably for the cut down models, by the way, Then they put 4 LPDDR5 chips on there, and what do you get? Well, a 256-bit bus. But 4 LPDDR6 chips will not only be faster, but offer more bus width per chip. And so for the Halo products, they could have pretty much double the bandwidth of Strix Halo, but then the more budget cut down variants will probably look more like Strix Halo, and also probably, I think, drop into the same laptops instead of needing a new, more cutting edge one for them. And finally, there is reference to a potential little Halo with 192-bit LPDDR6 or 128-bit LPDDR5X memory controllers and 24 compute units. It's basically half Medusa Halo. And so there you go. What do I think of all this information? Well, first of all, let me say this. I have seen rumors out there about a Gorgon point, and on one of the documents, it was referenced. So I have no reason to doubt that AMD, like they seem to do with all of their APUs, Strix Point in this example, will refresh it to a faster variant, maybe with a few tweaks. The same thing AMD did with Phoenix to Hawk Point. But that doesn't mean AMD can't have some other Zen 6 products launching next year or at the very beginning of 2027, because, well, the same thing has already happened. Hawk Point launched December of 2023, then rolled out in early 2024, and then still AMD had new Zen 5 APUs before the end of the year. AMD is on an aggressive cadence with APUs, seemingly launching new product families every 6 to 9 months now as they try to beat Intel into the dirt while they have them down. Now, moving forward, though, I will say that Olympic Ridge for AM5, so Zen 6 on your AM5 desktops, this does look to me like it's going to be a very expensive generation. As I've already leaked, they have these new bridge dies for lower latencies. They're going with 3 nanometer for the I/O die, potentially, of some of their products. 6 nanometer maybe for other ones, but still, the fact that they're even considering 3 nanometer for an I/O die, and cutting edge, not cutting edge, bleeding edge, N2X for the core chiplets, possibly stacking multiple layers of Vcache. They're going for it. They want to win, and they want to spend the money to make these things as powerful as possible. I really do think that they want to make up for Zen 5 falling below expectations. For gamers, for productivity, it seemed fine, but for gamers, I would say it did fall short of expectations, at least until the Vcache models came out. And so, yep, I think AMD wants to deliver a crushing blow to Intel next year, and I think it will be expensive, but when you combine all of it, ultra-high clock speeds, another IPC bump, possibly multiple layers of Vcache and a new cutting-edge I/O die for some of the models, I don't think AMD's screwing around at all here. It may cost a lot, but it's going to deliver, I think, one of the largest performance uplifts we've seen from Zen in a while. We'll have to wait for final reviews to see if it goes well, but that is what this is looking like to me. And then as for the APUs, like I already said, I'm disappointed that Medusa Halo seems to be coming out a full year after the non-Halo variants, not over a year after them. And I don't know. I still think it's probably going to be a really great product. I can't wait to see what they do with that. And I can't wait to see what happens with OEMs. I mean, we've already seen like HP get the, what was it called? The AI9 HX375, a higher clocked neural engine variant of Strix Point, like as a semi-custom specialty for HP. I don't think there's anything stopping an OEM like Asus or HP from asking AMD to put N2X CCDs on some of their gaming laptop APUs. And it'll be very fascinating to see what happens. Like if maybe one APU Asus wants in 2027 is like an N2X Vcache 12 core, but not 24 core, just 12 core variant with like the full 48 compute units and LPDDR6 for Medusa Halo. You could see that being the ultimate gaming APU chip. And if they want to pay extra for it, I'm told AMD can do it. And again, I know that they're using 2 different nodes technically here, N2X and then N2P for these chiplets, but I don't think that's a big deal, really. I mean, at the end of the day, you'll have the efficient yields, the non-efficient yields that go higher, and they can take the yields from either of them and mix and match them for desktop and laptop. You could have the most efficient, actually, if you think about it, N2P yields be used for the flagship laptop parts. Then they could take the parts that aren't as bend as well with voltage and just say, yeah, that's going to be your R5 or whatever desktop chip. So I think all of this actually makes a lot of sense, and it's just fascinating AMD's pushing it this hard to the limit. And yeah, besides that, before I start rambling, I really don't have anything else to say. Please make sure you are subscribed to the Moore's Law is Dead YouTube channel and ring that bell button. I gotta tell you guys, I've only shown you half of what I know, and without completely giving away the other documentation I have, you might want to brush up on one of my recent videos from last year. But besides that, again, really just helping you subscribe to Moore's Law Z on YouTube, and also consider supporting us on Patreon. We have tons of exclusive content that's come out recently to our patrons, never with any ads. They're just bonus die shrink videos, interviews with guests, analysis of things that we don't think might do as well on YouTube with the algorithm, but we know our fans would love to see. The lowest tier, $2 a month, gets you access to that, and actually also gets you access to Ask Guest Questions. Tim from Hardware Unboxed will be the next guest on Moore's Law Z. We'll be talking about this. We'll be talking about Intel and NVIDIA. You can ask Tim questions if you join Moore's Law Z on Patreon at the lowest tier. And, let me also thank the sponsor of this video one more time too, CyberGhost VPN. Thank you to them for sponsoring this video. Remember, you can get CyberGhost VPN for 83% off plus 4 months for free through the link in the description, which is risk-free due to a 45-day money-back guarantee. And all right, everybody else, though, whether you're going to support the sponsor or support us on Patreon, you did make it pretty far into a pretty long video. So at a minimum, thank you for watching.